Robin Vincent and welcome back to Molten Modular. Here I have my case, it's powered, it's ready for modules, and now I'm going to put the modules in. Yay! So what in the end did I decide upon? Well, my first oscillator is this one. It's the STO from Make Noise. Why this one in particular? Well, it's a difficult question to answer. I just wanted a good standard oscillator with a sub from a company that interests me, like Make Noise. So this seemed to be the perfect, simple, not too big option. There are other ones, of course. The Dixie 2 Plus from IntelliGel springs to mind. I was recommended that a number of times, but this seemed to be a good starting point. And also, I happened to notice that Caitlin Oriela-Smith, whose music I really like, happens to have about half a dozen of them in her rack. So it seemed like a decent option. So here it is, my first oscillator. Let's stick it in. So my understanding is that my cable here, which should be wired the right way, there's a little line indicating the -12, which is where the red line needs to be. So that seems to be okay as far as I understand it. And then this just needs to plug in to the flying bus. Let's try that. Then it sits there. Need my knurlies, like I did before, my little knurlies here, as I'm using as screws. It only has the single hole, so I only need a single nut to put it into. So I seem to be making a complete pig's ear of this. I'm going to take this out. Because what's happened is that the back of the module has snagged on the flying bus cables. And is dragging it along, which I don't want. I want that to sit comfortably there. Okay. So that's good. There, so that wasn't anywhere near as easy as I imagined, but that's in, that's good. So I'm going to power this on. I guess it's worthwhile doing that every time I add a module, just to make sure that that's actually working and that I don't blow myself up. Now, of course, I have absolutely no idea whether that's working, as it doesn't have its own little light, in which case I'm going to try to be clever. Because I don't fully understand what is going on yet, I'm just going to take the audio output, the proper audio output from the Mother 32, take the output of something like the sine wave and plug that into my Mother 32, the external audio. Here's the Mother, and then there's the Make Noise. So that appears to be working. I'm not actually playing it as such, as I'm just opening the gate to allow the audio to come through, which is always coming out of that output. Awesome. So that's the first oscillator installed. Let's turn it off and install the next one. So for my second oscillator, I went for this. It's a black Wavetable VCO from EricaSynths. Now I really, really like EricaSynths stuff. I love the way it looks. I love the graphics on the panel. I love the size of the knobs. I love the sound of the stuff that they make. So to me, EricaSynths are like a no-brainer. I mean, I've never used them, obviously, because this is the first time I'm using anything, but it just really appealed to me. And for a second oscillator, I wanted something just slightly different, not a basic, simple oscillator like the STO. I wanted something which had a little bit more to it, but wasn't too digital. It didn't go so far as to have lots of menus that I was trying to get through in order to find different sounds. I still wanted something simple, just that had perhaps different potential and different sounds going on than the regular oscillator. So the black wavetable seems to really fit the bill, and I'm really looking forward to playing with it. So let's stick that in. It's off. I'm using that one end, I think. Now this takes 4 screws. I'm sure there's lots of interesting things you can do with cable management, but I'm not interested at the moment. Okay, turn it on. Got lights and things. Is it making any sound? I don't know. Out. Oh wow, I'm loving that already. That's amazing. Next up, the maths. It has to be the maths. Apparently everyone should have a maths. It's the one thing that everyone should have is a maths. I could not seem to get away without getting a maths. It was really weird. Whenever I showed anybody my mock-up and it didn't have a maths in it, they would say, oh wow, you need a maths in there. And then when I went sort of halfway and put a function in there, which is like half of a maths, people would go, oh no, you don't want a function, you want a maths. And so the conversation would never move any further until I put the maths in there. Once the maths was in my virtual modular grid thing, then people would ignore it and we'll be able to talk about other things and other things within the rack. So it just seems that you need to have a maths. No matter who you are or what you're doing, it has to be in there. Now I have no idea what this does or how it works. I mean, I have an idea that it's both an envelope generator and an LFO, and it has a lot of stuff in it which is so deep that you'll never ever reach the bottom. Now that's not immediately exciting to me. What's exciting is things that kind of do as I expect them to. However, I imagine that there's a lot of fun to be had with this module, and I will get to the bottom of it, but I was not planning on having it in my first row. However, as I say, there didn't seem to be any way I could avoid it, and so I'm going to embrace the maths. I'm going to start having a look and see if I can work out what the heck it's for, but it seems to be completely vital. So I'm just going with it. I'm just going with it, and hopefully it will reveal itself in time. Okay, it has a light. Now I have no idea how to know, there seems to be an input there, whether it's making any of the right noises. Oh, I have no idea what that's doing, but if it's anything like the No Coast, then it's going to be always weird to me. But it seems to be working, so that's awesome. Next, now this is another company I try to avoid, not because I don't love their stuff, but because they just seem so kind of enormous and dominating within a rack, and that's Mutable Instruments. I mean, everyone again was saying I should be getting a Clouds or a Braids. Braids is like is an oscillator with lots of different waveforms in it, a little bit like the EricaSynths one, but it's a bit more computery. You know, it's got this big LED display, and you sort of step through different things, and there's the odd menu and bits and pieces. So I wasn't particularly enamored with that. I mean, I know that Clouds is something that I'm absolutely going to be getting at some point because it's ideal for the sort of music that I make. But I think there's going to be enough complexity in my rack as it is without having to have a single module that has so much going on. I mean, I already have the maths to look at, and I think that's going to be plenty for the moment. However, I was able to sneak in this, which is Veils from Mutable Instruments, and this is a VCA. It's a Quad VCA, so I've got 4 voltage control amplifiers in here, which I'm going to use, I think, at this stage of my understanding, to apply envelopes to my oscillators. I can also use it as a bit of a mixer, because if you don't put anything in these outputs, then they actually sum all the way down to the bottom. So anything that goes in the inputs will come out together at the bottom, which is quite neat. At least that's what I understand so far. So I guess to try this one, I should take something into an input and take the output into here again. And I could also take the output of the other oscillator into there. There we go, lovely. Next up, an envelope generator. Now, many people told me that because I have the maths, I won't need an envelope generator. However, that sort of would really confuse me because that didn't seem to make any sense. Because to have a maths, which is, you know, not a cheap module, and to use it just as an envelope all the time seems like a complete waste, because it's supposed to be able to do these extraordinary, complex and interesting things, which is great. So why would I want to use it just as an envelope? And presumably I'm going to need an envelope all the time because I like to shape oscillators. That seems to make sense to me. So in my, again, limited understanding, I could see that I would need an envelope. Surely, yeah? An envelope? Anyway, so to me an envelope is an ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release. That's what I wanted. And this one from Tip Top, again a company I quite liked, so I kind of wanted to have one of their bits of gear in here as well. This is completely voltage controlled, so you can control all the aspects of the envelope via control voltage, which you can't in some envelopes. I looked at the DOFA, for instance, and you can't do that with that. So this seemed to be a slightly, perhaps overly complicated envelope, but was definitely the one that I wanted. So anyway, let's plug it in and see if that works. Now at this point, I can't really remember how I wire that all together, because I'm going to need some form of trigger source, which then is going to trigger that, which then shapes the what's it in order to shape the thing. So it has a light on, so that's nice. So I'm not going to worry about that just now, because I need to sit down and work through it methodically to see if I can work out how to integrate this with everything else. But so far everything has been working, so you know, I'm not that fussed. Moving on. Now the next module I've got here is a filter. Now I like filters, I really like the filtering, the whole cut off knob thing. It's just, it seems to make complete sense and sonic loveliness as far as I'm concerned. And I knew that I wanted a good filter. I mean, I've got a sort of a classic Moog filter on my Mother 32 here, but I wanted something perhaps edgier, perhaps more interesting. So I naturally turned to EricaSynths because of the darkness, the blackness of their stuff, and the fact that this is a Polivoks filter, or based upon one. Now, Polivoks is an old Soviet synth, which I find very pleasing. I like it. I loved its use on the new Doom soundtrack and things like that. So to me, I felt it was important to put a bit of effort into the choice of filter, and the Polivoks is definitely the one that shined out for me. There's lots and lots of different options out there, but I don't think you can go far wrong with something like this. I now have the sound of small children playing outside, which is great because that sort of mirrors and reflects the delight in my heart of putting this whole thing together. Now let's see if I can get a sound through the filter. So I take my output, plug that into an input here, take this output, let's stick it into my amplifier, and take the output into there. Okay, there's something there. Lovely. Right, what's next? Well, on the modulation front, I have here a Batumi LFO. It's a quad LFO because I know in my head that I want lots of modulation, and so having 4 modulators in one box seemed like a good idea. It seems like a straightforward, nice and sensible idea. So this is what I have. Right. Oh, look. See, that's nice. Having lights flashing, that's always nice. That's always lovely. So I'm going to come out of my Wavetable one, into the filter, out to the amplifier, and I'm going to take something from here, sine wave, and I'm going to stick that into CV1. Should it be that easy? Yes, of course it is. Yeah, then I can take another one, stick that into the wave CV, I think. So now I've got the LFO changing the wave that's being used on the Wavetable VCA, as well as affecting the filter. Lovely. Now I'm going to go into a great more depth on each of these modules individually in different videos, so I'm not going to dwell on it now. I'm just trying to show that it works. Now I've got this much space left. I have one more little thing to try, one more little module to put in, and then for the moment we're done. The final little thing is this EricaSynths Pico DSP. Now it's just a little effects module. It's got some reverse and delay, bits and pieces like that in there, and honestly, I love those sorts of things. I just want the sound to have an easy access to a delay line or some nice reverb. And this seemed to fit the bill. I don't want anything complicated. I don't need anything huge at this stage. Just something simple. In fact, I imagine I might get a couple of these at some point. But anyway, this is enough for now. A light is always good. So I'm going to want the output of this potentially to go in there. Well, that seems to be working fine. So there you have it. I have installed my entire rack. It's gone without any problems at all, other than children coming to the door. It all appears to be working. All the lights are on. And the only thing I've got to work out now really is how I actually trigger the sounds rather than just allowing the sounds through a gate. I really want to be triggering them with something, playing them with something, or sequencing them with something. But I think that's all for another time. So I do have this space over here, and I've got 2 sockets left for modules. I wonder what happens if I wanted to stick a load of Pico ones in here and therefore don't have enough sockets. I wonder if you can split them and things like that. That's something I'm going to have to look into. But my plan at this moment is to put in a Turing module, which is like a random source generator. And also I'm very interested by the disting from Expert Sleepers, which is this kind of remarkable small module which has got tons and tons and tons of different features. Now, as I've mentioned before, I'm not that interested in something that has lots and lots of features. I want a module that does a single job really, really well. That's kind of what I've been after. However, the Disting Mark IV, as it is now, has such great and interesting things inside that you can sort of use it to try out ideas. So I don't actually know if I need a clock attenuator thingy, but the Disting has one and allows me to try it out. I don't know if I need a quantizer, but the Disting has one and it allows me to try it out. And if I find things in there that I start using all the time, I could then get the right module to do that sort of permanently and dedicatedly. So to me, the Disting looks like a really interesting module that's going to open up lots of different ways of using Eurorack that I haven't really thought of before. Because as this is, I've got 2 oscillators, a crazy thing, an amplifier, an envelope, a filter, and an LFO, and some effects. I mean, it could not be simpler than that. Right, now I've got to work out how I use all this stuff. And until next time, go make some tunes. Wow.